You're listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
File access granted.
Welcome, all you skeptics, believers, idealists, all those questioning the world around you. I'm Ty.
And I'm Bailey.
And this is Cult Talks Conspiracy. And this is our first sequel.
Yeah!
This is a continuation of File 005, The Men in Black Begins.
Mm-hmm.
And as promised, in doing some research for that episode, I kind of started putting together pieces together of what I believe to be the real Men in Black. I figured it just warranted its own episode.
Yeah.
So we would just dive into this whole thing and just focus solely on these groups and a couple men who I would say are the actual Men in Black that kind of correlate with what we know the Men in Black to be. So,
are they actual men though?
You know.
I'm really interested because you did kind of touch a little bit on this in File 005. And I'm really excited. If you haven't listened to that yet, you really need to go and check that out. Because it gets wild. I'm really excited to hear, if you expand on that at all a little bit.
It was fun researching this. Yeah, there's some weird stuff in it, some crazy stuff too. And we've done a lot of Men in Black themed stuff here in November. We had 005, and then of course our Black Friday special. I hope everyone enjoyed something a little different, which is going to become kind of a recurring thing here on Cult Talk Conspiracy, especially here in the next month. We have one dropping for Christmas, and we also have another Encounters dropping on New Year's Day, the very first day in 2023. So hopefully you guys really enjoyed Men in Black Encounters, because the Encounters kind of concept is something we're gonna be exploring a lot and doing. It's kind of our specials. It's going to be reserved for like specials. And also, this is our first episode back from Thanksgiving, so we hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Hopefully didn't get too full.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I definitely fill up on my mom's homemade mashed potatoes, and then Ben's mom actually makes homemade noodles. I hope neither one of them hear this, because I actually take the mashed potatoes and the noodles and put them together, and it's amazing. I didn't know mashed potatoes and noodles went together until I moved to Ohio.
Yeah, as a kid, that's the only way I'd eat them together.
Really?
I love doing that. Yeah.
Oh man,
that's always my way of doing it.
Absolutely.
Do you travel a lot for Thanksgiving?
Oh yeah. We travel. I travel pretty much that whole week of Thanksgiving from family member to family member, because my dad lives out of state, so he comes up to see us. My mom lives like 40 minutes away, and then we have Ben's extended family, which are from all over Ohio. So we typically get like a meeting place and then go. But yeah, a lot of time in the car during holidays.
Oh. Well,
what about you?
Podcast then. I usually will travel to my sister's house, and my sister, my brother-in-law, and my dad will have dinner. And then every now and then I go to my mom's. My mom has like a huge family, so they have a huge dinner. This Thanksgiving though, I'm on call, or I was on call, so I'm doing my Thanksgiving at home, because I have to be a slave to our contract. So I will be at home, or I was at home, going to make a little Thanksgiving dinner for myself and Evan. So it's going to be like a dinner for two kind of thing. Like a ham and all that stuff, just because I have to be at my computer the
Does
whole
Shy
week.
get a plate?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
She's going to have all the scraps.
Gypsy will get a plate at each Thanksgiving. Like even my mom will make Gypsy a special plate for her, because she knows that she gets it. And now that she's old dog, we gotta treat the old dog.
You gotta cater to her.
Oh yeah. But I'm excited. I'm super excited for this one.
This one too opens up. There was a few subjects I like touched on in this that I think would be great, like future episodes that we'll definitely have to expand on. A couple of little subjects that pop up in this, kind of briefly, because I did when I was writing. I was like, man, those are subjects to explore in a whole nother episode. So there's stuff like that. But I think we can just get right on into it, and let's unseal File 007, which I think is cool correlation. 007 here for our real Men in Black. File 007, the real Men in Black. Let's go ahead and seal it. Previously on Cult Talks Conspiracy, we talked about the most notorious phenomena in the world of ufology, and that is the Men in Black.
Yes.
You think of UFOs, I think it's pretty much you think of Men in Black as well. They're pretty well sewed in with each other. Now, who exactly are the Men in Black is very subjective. Many people believe they're extraterrestrial beings, some form of artificial intelligence, perhaps. Or even an interesting idea posed in a previous episode. We talked about John Keel's concept of ultra-terrestrials.
Yeah.
Which I think is definitely something like that. That concept like hooked me, and we definitely have to like touch on that.
We're going back. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
We definitely have to. Now we're not touching on it here. Because I'm going in the real guys. But I think ultra terrestrials is something we definitely have to cover in like a full episode at some point.
Oh yeah. After you told me about the ultra terrestrials, like I had to go back to Ben and Eric and just be like, you guys aren't ready. Like I wasn't ready. You guys aren't ready. Of course, I don't tell them because like I leave people in suspense all the time. I'm very dramatic that way. Yeah. But like I'm like I don't know how to explain that. So I'm excited. I can't wait.
It's wild. We definitely have to make that a whole episode.
Oh my gosh. Yes. That's a crazy, scary, all kinds of like in your nightmares phenomena. But I don't know what would be scarier, the ultra terrestrials or what the real Men in Black may be. Or I don't know. I'm nervous.
That's definitely a question. That's definitely a question to pose because I mean, what if these agents were something a little more grounded, and I think maybe even a little more frightening.
Grounded, like they're from the earth. Grounded.
Yeah, underground. They're mole people.
Oh, underground. Ooh, underground.
That's the twist. You don't expose the twist.
Oh no.
Human beings, just human beings, members of a shadowy government agency, who will do whatever it takes to keep secrets sealed. That I feel like is a little more frightening.
Oh yeah, personally,
that they are just human beings. That also kind of like leaves us to have a little something in common with them. They're humans, we're humans, and what are we capable of? It's a very interesting question. Previously we talked about some of the earliest reported encounters of the Men in Black. Eyewitness Howard Dahl. That's the famous like first recorded incident of Men in Black. And I say recorded because we don't know how many times people have encountered these or how many people have encountered them. We don't know because some people might be just too fearful to ever come forward. So he also kind of hinted at the supernatural origins. What many people don't know is that Kenneth Arnold, who's someone I think we've mentioned almost every episode. I think almost every episode. His
at
name
least 6 out of 7 so far.
At least I don't think we mentioned him in probably the Ocean at Night, and definitely not in the Super Volcano.
Yeah, no.
But I'd say beyond that, he's probably at least been brought up at one point in almost every episode. He had kind of an encounter with what I would say is the real Men in Black. Now, this was Lieutenant Brown and Captain Davidson in July 12th, 1947, who by their reports, they were very impressed with Kenneth Arnold, his reports. They were they found him to be a very reliable witness. Kenneth Arnold, as we've talked about, was just the first in what would be basically like a firestorm of people just coming forth and saying they've seen UFOs. So these guys, Lieutenant Brown and Captain Davison, they go out, they interview Kenneth Arnold, and they think this guy is like the real deal. He's, very reliable, and they put that in their report that he was a very reliable person. And what follows is this huge firestorm of all these different UFO reports coming through. Now, I believe this was kind of what caused this is what caused the government to kind of change pace, because you will see in a lot of these early UFO encounters, like Roswell even, you'll see like these early reports where they're like, hey, this is weird. This is something that really happened. And then immediately backtrack. And that's kind of what happened with Kenneth Arnold, where they said these guys were like, oh, he's really telling the truth. And then immediately afterwards, they would come out and be like, well, actually, he saw like a flock of geese or whatever. They would just kind of brush off like that. And that would set an early precedence to how the government would go and handle the subject of UFOs from here on out.
Deny.
Exactly. Deny. I think that's just very interesting. Like once you like look, you can take like a handful of early UFO reports, and you will find that more than enough where it's like, oh, this is real, and then immediately backtrack.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a weird thing because you can tell they didn't really have a true idea of how to handle it yet. But this was, as we've talked about a lot, when UFOs first started to crop up, this was a very like volatile time in world history because it was a Cold War. People were terrified, and they couldn't just have that was probably a terrifying concept to think of, that our government was allowing these unknown flying discs to just enter our airspace, and we're supposed to be protected. What's next? Like a nuclear warhead is like what you would think would be next. Now, around the time of the first widespread UFO reports began the first inklings of the Men in Black, as we discussed. Harold Dahl, all those guys, they started reporting these weird incidents where people were getting accosted by these mysterious Men in Black. Now, if you generalize the most common characteristics of the Men in Black, they're very mysterious, they're straightforward, and often the person they're interviewing gets the impression that harm may come to them if they don't keep quiet about what they saw. We talked a little bit about how there's a theory that a lot of supposed Men in Black encounters could stem from a form of the telephone game.
Yeah.
Which I thought that made a lot of sense when I read that, because I found that on Reddit, where people were talking about the telephone game and how that can be kind of a example of a lot of different sightings and things like that. And it did make a lot of sense. You tell someone something and it kind of grows from there, especially with the Men in Black, who at this point had become kind of this like pop culture thing.
Yeah, and it was definitely an aspect I had never thought of before. So when you brought it up, it took me a minute to kind of swallow, because I'm thinking, wait, no, yeah, okay, humans, like, right. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Right, and now, whether or not UFO experiencers, which is a term I found while I was researching, and I thought was kind of cool. That's what they call them, experiencers. Is what, when they see a UFO, you're an experiencer.
Oh.
Whether or not these experiencers were contacted by a secret government organization during the Cold War era is actually fully factual. Like that, when you look into it, that is not something that is up for debate, really. When you look into this stuff, this is actually just something that happened. Now, these agents, though, they were all human. Likely they were all human. Yeah. they were just human beings. Now, the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, aka the AFOSI. Now, these are guys we'll talk about here later on, and they'll kind of be a central part of this story. The AFOSI, Air Force Office of Special Investigations. Now, they were founded in 1948 and was a field office. They were heavily modeled after the FBI. At the time of its creation, it was originally focused on investigating criminal activity within the Air Force, fraud, smuggling, other offenses. They would also look into major concerns in national security, such as treason and espionage, which were major concerns during the Cold War. During the Cold War, that was something that was on a lot of people's mind, is, the Soviets could have sleeper agents or something in the government.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering how that was going to tie in to one another. I'm like, okay, where's the Men in Black? Yeah. Okay.
Now, as we have somehow touched on almost every episode, the late 1940s were a boom in the world of UFO activity, especially in the skies above America. Now, obviously, being that they were concerned with that they were considered to be aerial phenomena, the best office to head the investigation was the AFOSI.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is if each branch of the military had their own special investigation task unit.
I'm pretty sure they do.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, because I just looked into the AFOSI.
Okay.
Which they, like I said, they modeled themselves after the FBI.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, they even had a former FBI director, I believe, was kind of the head of it, to help them kind of get things in line.
Nice.
So the AFOSI would begin one of the most notorious UFO investigations of all time, Project Blue Book. This is considered to be one of the most comprehensive UFO investigations ever conducted by the United States government. Most people don't know is that's actually the third investigation. I think that's what many people don't understand is that the Blue Book was not the only government investigation. Originally called Project Saucer, Project Sign was established in 1948 with the goal to collect and evaluate information on UFO sightings to determine if they were any concern to national security. This investigation ran for less than a year and was shut down for lack of proof. Now, an interesting note on Project Sign is that in 1956, retired Air Force Captain Edward J. Ruppelt. I couldn't figure out how to pronounce his name. We'll talk about him a lot. So.
Okay.
Ruppelt said in his book, The Report on Unidentifying Flying Objects, that Sign had concluded an estimate on the situation that alluded to interplanetary explanation before it was shut down. Interplanetary is traveling between planets. So he said that at some point Sign had began to kind of paint a picture of something extraterrestrial. Before it was shut down.
Why was it shut down?
The only explanation it's given is lack of proof. It wouldn't be long after that the next project would take the next investigation, which was called Project Grudge. Don't know why it was called Project Grudge.
I feel like
that's what they decided to call it.
I feel like that's someone like that headed that like had a bad experience with aliens and was like, "We're there and gotta know we're coming." Like
it sounds like some maybe like a bad revenge action movie. Or like a metal band name or something. Project Grudge.
It'd be a Sam Raimi movie for sure.
Yeah, it could be. Despite the name, the actual purpose of Project Grudge was to alleviate the growing anxiety of the public in regards to UFOs. Additionally, they sought to persuade the public's perception of UFOs. By this time, those fearful of UFOs saw them as mysterious invaders. That was kind of the overall idea of UFOs. There was a lot of sci-fi movies and science fiction novels and stuff where they would get the idea that these were like invaders. Now, Grudge intended to shed a light on these as nothing more than balloons, solar reflections, or misidentified aircraft. Grudge operated from early 1949 to roughly early 1951. It seemed like it kind of shut down halfway through like 1950, but kind of had like a couple people who were kind of like using it as a hobby or something like that. Until 1951, they finally just called it quits. And by the end of it, it was like greatly reduced in scope. So it started with kind of a decent sized staff, and by the end, it was just a couple people kind of hanging on.
Oh, okay. Well, that's always sad. Like
you'll see it happens here next with Project Blue Book too. So it concluded with a report that UFOs pose no direct threat to national security, and that most UFO sightings were misidentifications, war hysteria, hoaxes, or hallucinations. Now, Project Grudge was heavily criticized for focusing less on science and more on public relations. That's what they kind of seen it more as. They was kind of just out to kind of persuade the public. They weren't so much concerned with like actually investigating UFO sightings. They were more concerned with how the UFO perceived UFOs, or how the public perceived UFOs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
kind of
that was more of their concern.
Kind of like predating algorithms there. Like how many people liked it? How many people didn't like it?
Exactly.
Like,
they were exactly. They wanted to make it to where the public was less fearful of UFOs, because obviously these things were popping up, in the skies, and we're in Cold War era, and fear is a very dangerous thing. So they wanted to make it to where people were less fearful and more open to the idea that, if you see something in the sky, it's more than likely like a balloon or a plane or a sunspot or something like that. That's what they wanted to make it.
Yeah.
Make people less adverse, just be like, I saw a UFO. They wanted to make it where people were just more calm about it.
Yeah, because mass hysteria is a really crazy thing. We've seen that here recently with mass hysteria. It can get dangerous, and especially like back then when you have like a full blown war, or not even a full blown war. I'm sorry, a Cold War. So like just on the verge, and then you create or like that kind of mass hysteria, panic driven environment is created, like, oh yeah, I mean, that's just, I think, common sense, just trying to calm everybody down when you're in that kind of environment.
Yeah, because at this time, people were afraid of, having a bomb dropped on them.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what a lot of people's fears were.
Mhm.
And then you look up and you see something in the sky. I mean, you would automatically think like it's a bomb.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't explode, you're thinking you saw a UFO. So
Oh yeah.
now both of these investigations would pale into comparison to Project Blue Book, originally under direction of Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, who we mentioned earlier, beginning in March 1952 from the designated headquarters at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio.
Wow. Hi, Wright-Patterson. Lovely to see you again.
Yeah, we definitely have to cover that at some point. Wright-Pat is I think a good little hotbed of conspiracy stuff. So we've seen it mentioned in Roswell, and now it's the head base of Project Blue Book. So
I have my theories on what is actually going on at Wright-Patterson. I have my theories.
I think it'd be a very interesting episode.
Oh yes.
The AFOSI headed the investigation with two objectives, and these were familiar objectives. They were basically the same objectives that were given to Project Sign and to Project Grudge. Mm-hmm. That was to determine if UFOs were a threat to national security and to scientifically analyze all UFO-related data.
Oh.
Now, this was coming hot off the heels of Project Grudge. Project Grudge had just wrapped like a year prior, and one of the main supporters of Project Blue Book was General Charles P. Campbell. Now, he pushed for UFO to be subject to serious scientific scrutiny because he himself considered himself to be a experiencer. I guess he had seen a UFO at one point. So he was very pro Project Blue Book to really take a serious scientific look at these things to see what they actually were. Now, one of the tasks for the AFOSI agents during their investigation was to visit reported UFO sightings, locations, and to meet with and interview witnesses. Now, Project Blue Book, although it is regarded as the most high-profile government investigation, is still highly criticized. I think if people don't understand Project Blue Book, is that it really does go downhill fast, and we're going to talk about that. But it does go downhill fast. It starts out with a lot of promise, and it just gets kind of trashed very early on, and that's why it's not really as cool as it sounds. Project Blue Book, this government-funded investigation, it's not very well done, and we'll talk about that. But it's not what people will think it is, and that's the thing. So Captain Ruppelt would write in his book that overall attitude within Project Blue Book was UFOs couldn't exist. No matter what you see or hear, they don't exist. That was the main attitude going into Project Blue Book, is that under no circumstances could there be the conclusion that UFOs were real. So that was the attitude going right into it.
I feel like that closes a lot of doors though when you're researching though, because it's like, is it?
Oh yeah.
Like I'm not a scientist, but I do feel like when you're experimenting and researching something new, you have to have some sort of open mind as to like, could this be real? And I feel like shutting that door entirely, that honestly just botches your whole experiment. I'm not a scientist though. I don't know.
It definitely. You have to, if you want to look at things scientifically, you have to have an open mind. And going right into Project Blue Book, they already had the mindset that in no way could the conclusion be that UFOs were a legitimate threat. They could not come with that conclusion. So already you pretty much have your answer. And I think that's why Project Blue Book becomes like a wasted thing, is because what's the purpose at that point,
Yeah. Like at this point, you're just trying to look at things. I don't know. I want to hear more. I want to hear more before I say more.
So one example of this, now this is after Project Blue Book began in 1953, regulation number 146 was made by the Joint Army, Navy, Air Force, which made it a crime punishable by 2 years in prison for military personnel to discuss UFO reports with unauthorized persons. So that was one of the things that came from Project Blue Book, and an auxiliary group, which we'll talk about here shortly. They helped implement this regulation 146 to go ahead and just silence anyone within the military that they could not talk about UFO reports. So throughout the near decade and a half investigation, there were a total of 5 directors who would have control over Project Blue Book at different times. So you had Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, who was from 1952 to 1953. You had Captain Charles Hardin from 1954 to 1956. Captain George T. Gregory from 1956 to 1957. Captain J. Friend from 1958 to 1963. And Major Hector Quintanilla from 1963 to 1969, when it would be disbanded.
Oh wow! So it went for over 10 years. Wow.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
near 15 years. In its wake, Blue Book did more to harm the public's perception of the government, as many reports and stories circulated of AFOSI officials disregarding reliable witnesses and even going out of their way to call their reputations and even mental well-being into question for those who reported UFO sightings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, it gets scary here toward the end. I found a pretty interesting example of this. That's pretty crazy. We'll talk about here toward the end. But in 1966, after their UFO sighting was officially dismissed as a flying billboard advertising gasoline, officers Eugene Bertram and David Hunt wrote to director Quintanilla, who was at that time the director, that their reputations were destroyed. They were never looked at the same on the force, in the police precinct, and they just had their reputations completely trashed. Everything they did from that point on was questioned.
Oh wow.
So in the early part of Project Blue Book, the CIA organized the Robertson Panel, led by Howard P. Robertson. Howard P. Robertson was a physicist, CIA consultant, and even acted as director of the Defense Department Weapons Evaluation Group.
I've heard of this. I've heard my dad mention this before when we've been talking about like different. 'Cause, okay, my dad's a huge fan. He's like, you need to cover this. And actually, as we're talking about Project Blue Book, I have this right here. This the Hynek UFO report, and it has a lot to do with the.
Oh yeah,
Project
Hynek.
Blue
Yeah, he's actually on the Robertson
Nice.
panel. He's actually one of the members of the Robertson panel.
Oh,
Yeah.
I want to hear more now.
Now, the rest of the panel was made up of 6 other members that included 2 other physicists, a CIA officer, a nuclear physicist, a astrophysicist, and an astronomer. Now, the whole purpose of the panel was to evaluate all the data collected by Project Blue Book, which was growing at a rapid rate. Now, that as soon as Project Blue Book started, they were basically just getting like hundreds and hundreds of reports. Like it was a crazy amount of data. So now at that point, Captain Ruppelt presented 6 years worth of collected data to the Robertson panel. It took 12 hours to look over it all and determine that all the evidence was easily explained away and that further evidence was not needed. So this would set off a whole chain of events that sort of derailed the Project Blue Book and took it down a very dark path. So the Robertson panel got a hold of 6 years worth of data and 12 hours determined that all of it was useless, that it was not evidence, it was just a bunch of bullshit, and that no further evidence would be really needed. No, they didn't need to look at anything else. It was, they hit their mark. So following the counter investigation by the Robertson panel, they recommended that no longer should the project focus on investigating UFO claims, but rather minimizing public interest in UFOs. The panel laid out a plan to control public opinion through official propaganda, enlisting media outlets to ridicule and debunk UFO phenomena, and even to spy on groups with interest in UFOs. The previously mentioned Regulation Number 146 was a result of this panel as well. In the aftermath of the panel, original director Ruppelt left the project due to frustration when his previous staff of 10 was cut down to only 2. So they cut 80% of his staff from Project Blue Book.
Well, I mean, you're saying that there's no further evidence needed. Why do you need that big of a staff if you're disproving it? Like, don't get annoyed because of your findings. Sorry that I don't agree with.
he was replaced by Captain Charles Hardin, who made no bones about how he felt about the UFOs. Ruppelt wrote in his book, Hardin thinks anyone who is even interested in UFOs is crazy. They bore him. So that was his rationale going into. He was the director of Project Blue Book at one point, the government's investigation of UFOs. Now, Hardin was eventually replaced by Captain George T. Gregory, who was said to even be more firm in his anti-UFO beliefs than Hardin.
Oh, man.
He was followed by Lieutenant Colonel J. Friend, who originally attempted. Now, Friend came in. His original idea was to put Blue Book back to its original form, and that didn't last long. He immediately gave up on it because any attempt he made to kind of bring it back, looking at things scientifically or anything of that sort, there was just no interest from anyone to do that. No officials wanted to give them money. No scientists were willing to kind of work with them. They just no one cared. There was no interest in looking at things scientifically from that point on. It was strictly to adhere to the Robertson Panel guidelines.
Yeah, that's so sad.
Now he left the project, and his opinion when he left was that the entire project was worthless. That it should just be shut down. Because at that point there was really nothing for them to do there. Their whole job at that point was getting a UFO report and saying, "Oh, that's bullshit," and throwing it away. That was their whole job.
Yeah. I mean, why would scientist organizations want to work with that? You're disproving what they're, spending months and probably years working on, and you're going to go in and just disprove it. And even if you're not, you have branded yourself like that, or maybe not you specifically, but anyway, the whole thing was branded
that's what the project was, because the Robertson Panel laid out the whole plan that there was no longer to really be any investigation. Now the whole point of Project Blue Book was just to basically debunk anything that came in. That was the whole point. It was just to say that all these reports were bullshit. That was the whole purpose of Blue Book at this point.
Oh, so sad.
So Major Hector Quintanilla took over in its final years and would draw some of the project's most harsh criticism.
Ooh.
As it continued its debunking tactics. Many UFO researchers had lost total faith in the project. And following Project Blue Book's conclusion, its results were their official statement after the closing of Project Blue Book was UFO sightings were attributed to mass hysteria, fabrications, misidentifications, or psychopathological behavior. So that's what they equated every UFO sighting was one of those reasons given. There was no profound statement on UFOs, and it was all just misidentification. Now, even though Project Blue Book and the Robertson Panel ended well into the 70s, the impact of the investigation is still felt today when it comes to the government and their opinion on the topic UFOs. Both the public perception and the handling of the subject by officials. So, like I said, Project Blue Book did a lot of damage in the end to the public's perception of the government when it comes to UFOs. Project Blue Book instilled a lasting impression on the public that the government will only dismiss UFO information, no matter how reliable, and will either disregard or cover it up. A lot of mistrust from the government stems from the handling of Project Blue Book.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was so public. That was the thing too. This report was a very high profile thing at the time because, this is one of the big booms in UFO activity. The government appears to be taking it seriously, and then immediately it's just, all faith is lost.
I mean, what a way to just not. I have so many thoughts because that shuts down an entire realm of educating people and trying to find new answers and scientific even if we didn't have any technological advances that would have come from taking a lot of these accounts credibly.
Right.
There still could have been so many other things we could have learned, different patterns. If UFOs, if there were certain shapes that went along with different patterns, if people only saw certain saucers on one side of the country versus another. Like, these are all things now that, I mean, in my opinion, like, would have been valuable to us, because we do have there have been more and more UFO sightings. And now with social media and whatnot, if one goes up, we're all seeing it. So
Right.
I feel like it's such a lost opportunity, and it's just so disappointing.
Now, however, the tactics adopted by the government at this time, the Robertson panel laid out a lot of different ways that UFOs should be handled. Now, those tactics would become commonplace for how the subject was handled in the decades that followed, including one of the most frightening suggestions from the Robertson panel. So we're going to talk about a guy not a lot of people have heard of. This is Paul Frederick Benowitz Jr.
Oh.
Now, he was an American businessman. He was an electrical engineer. And during the 70s and 80s, he worked as a contractor for the United States Air Force. He was from New Mexico. And during this time, there was a rash of bizarre cattle mutilations, which is definitely a topic we have to discuss on a future episode, like for sure. Like, cattle mutilations is definitely a topic for Cult Talk Conspiracy. It deserves its own episode. So there was all these cattle mutilations going on, and the mutilations really inspired Paul to begin researching UFOs and extraterrestrials. He had not really been that into this. He'd been kind of like I would say like a light kind of UFO enthusiast. And then once these cattle mutilations started to take place near his hometown, he really went kind of head first. And he was almost kind of like consumed by the topic of UFOs and extraterrestrials. Like, it really consumed him.
That can be dangerous. All right. So when I'm thinking of these cow mutilations, I'm thinking of like the, I guess you would call it sort of the traditional Skinwalker Ranch cow mutilations, where it's literal surgical precision. Like, it's almost weird to call it a mutilation because of just how precise these cuts are. So is that I don't know if they went that far into your details.
I didn't look that far into this part, but it was just cattle mutilations. Like, I'm sure it was like that. These typical cattle mutilations of these surgical cuts and bizarre circumstances that surround it.
Super weird.
Now, while on contract at Kirtland Air Force Base and the Monsanto Mountain Nuclear Weapon Depository, Paul would see what he described as strange lights above. To Paul, these lights were actually aliens attempting to communicate with him.
Whoa.
He began to record these lights and even figured out how to decode them. The truth, however, was that Paul was actually observing top secret military aircraft being tested in the area. And he was videotaping these, taking pictures and all that stuff. So Benowitz published Project Beta in 1981, where he says, it's important to note at the outset that aliens are devious. They employ deception and have no intent on any apparent peacemaking process. Paul had developed this theory that aliens were not just curious observers, but rather hostile enemies plotting a global invasion. The bizarre cattle mutilations, he believed, were early tests on what the aliens intended to do to humans. As fantastical as it all sounds, it was more than just a theory to him. He had seen the secret underground bases. He had seen their craft, and they were all shown to him by his good friend, Richard Doty. Air Force Special Investigation Officer Richard Doty, that is. Now, Doty approached Benowitz in the early 1980s and told him, I'm with the government. If you cooperate with me, I will tell you everything we know about UFOs. And Paul, he couldn't say no to this. I mean, it's a crazy thing to happen.
So was Richard like a real Men in Black then? Like, can we? Okay. Oh, I'm excited.
Now, for his end of the bargain, he would provide all his research to Doty, including photos, radio transmissions he'd recorded. He would also provide information from within the UFO community. This was important for Doty because he could then alert higher ups if anyone was kind of getting too close to top secret, research or seeing top secret craft. He could let them know, and that way they could keep their eye on these people to make sure they're not a problem. Now, as reward, Benowitz was provided high-tech radio equipment to pick up alien communications, which was actually fake transmission by AFOSI agents.
No.
Yeah. So he was getting all these weird transmissions, and he'd even developed a way to translate them and like all this wild stuff.
I feel so bad.
And Doty even took him on a helicopter ride into the desert, where he saw proof of alien bases, which were actually just props set up by the AFOSI agents.
Okay.
They took him on a helicopter ride. And were like, you see that? There's like a metal door in the desert, and, all these pipes and stuff that they had put out there that they could say, look, there's like that's the air ventilation system.
Oh my gosh!
For the underground alien base.
The underground.
They're here.
Oh my gosh!
Now,
why? Why would they do this though?
To deter him, because he was diving too deep into like the things he was seeing, which was actually top secret government aircraft.
Oh, okay.
He was videotaping these things, taking pictures, and like trying to like figure out what they were, and like kind of dipping his toes into the actual classified stuff.
Yeah, which can be a huge security measure.
Yeah, exactly.
And whatnot. Like,
now, prior to meeting Doty, Benowitz was already a very fragile-minded person. He lived in total fear of an impending alien invasion, and Doty and the tactics employed by the AFOSI shattered his sanity. In 1988, his family joined together and would have him committed into a mental facility after having severe delusional paranoia and mental breakdowns. And he would die in 2003 in that mental institution. Yeah. And that's because the government basically fucked with him so bad. They sent him into a full-on paranoid, schizophrenic mental breakdown. And this is like actual stuff that happened.
I know it's actual stuff that happened. I'm like, a part of me is also like, why couldn't you just tell him like it's not real and it's none of your business? But also like that distrust for the government had already been so instilled in people by that time. It's like I don't think he would have let it go if they told him. Just from hearing what I've heard, it doesn't
at
sound
this
like
point,
it.
that's all you would hear from the government at this point was that, the UFOs weren't real and aliens weren't real and none of this exists. So he'd already probably heard that a million times.
Oh, yeah.
And then he has this guy come to him and say, hey, I'm an actual government agent and we want to work with you and we're going to tell you everything we know about UFOs. And all this crazy stuff you believe, that you think you know, is actually real. Like there's an alien invasion, there's underground bases.
Oh my gosh. You know what it reminds me of? Have you ever seen the movie A Beautiful Mind?
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. Like where he like is in if you haven't watched that movie, fabulous movie. Spoilers ahead. But where he's like in that sort of delusion where like he thinks like he's working for the government and like there's like war ahead and like he's like one of the only people that can like dispel it because he's a giant mathematician. So that's kind of what it reminds me of. But like I just feel so bad for him. Like they broke him.
They completely shatter him, and like I said, like his family had to get together and just like put him in a mental institution because he had just become so unstable at that point, where he was just in constant fear that there was an alien invasion about to happen at any point.
So that makes me honestly kind of wonder, because with Blue Book, one of the things that you said that they would do was sort of inspect the mental and psychological components of like people's sightings and whatnot. So like I wonder if he's not the only one that kind of happened to, but maybe the only one that happened to on that large of a scale.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Richard Doty, he actually he's retired now, and he's on like he openly talks about a lot of this stuff. Basically during the 80s, as a result of the Robertson panel, he was part of a task force that would basically infiltrate UFO groups like UFO convention and things like that. He would basically just go in there and he would make friends with people and feed them fake documents.
Oh man.
Or tell them wild stories about, things he'd seen or where to look for things, opposite of where the things actually were, that kind of stuff. Like basically just sow all this disinformation into the UFO community, just keep their noses out of anything that might actually be substance. So that was basically his job. There's a really good documentary you can find called The Mirage Men that I'm pretty sure it's on like Netflix even. I think it's on Netflix.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, and it talks basically about this project. It goes in depth about, his group and what they were tasked with and how they just sowed all this doubt.
Does he? I wonder
in
if
the UFO community.
I wonder if he says like if he regrets it or not, or like if he
I don't know.
feels any remorse.
I watched Mirage Men like years ago, and because that's where I found out about Doty. And he's super hard to research online too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he's got to be
documentaries,
if he's got to be like obsolete like that, and like like you don't want your face getting around that much. If
you can find his face everywhere. Just reading about him is hard to find. You can find him. He's in like documentaries as himself and stuff. I think he does a couple podcasts. He's in a couple podcasts.
Nice.
But yeah. Now he's retired, and he's even openly referred to himself as a real Men in Black. That's what he's kind of referred to himself.
Oh man, I'd love to get like a whole panel of them together. Just
that's my story of the real Men in Black. That was all the information I was able to come up with. The AFOSI.
That's awesome.
And their doings, and the shit show that was Project Blue Book.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. I was sitting here looking at my notes, and I'm like, I have notes all about Project Blue Book. I had a lot of issues with them.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's like before researching Blue Book, which I've known about Blue Book for a while, but what it actually was. I remember the first time I heard about it, I was in school, and I was like, "Wow, that's crazy!" And I thought it was this big thing, and like I remember researching it, being like so disappointed. You really do think, "Oh my God!" Like the government really was interested in UFOs.
Oh yeah.
And you find out they were like briefly interested in it, and then the rest of it they were just more concerned with just making sure that no one talked about UFOs or that they were just dispelled. That was pretty much it. Like the debunking tactics are crazy about how they were just openly going out and just destroying people's reputations just for having the audacity to say, "Oh, I think it's all UFO."
Oh, that's crazy. And like that even happened like you still see some of the ramifications of that, like to this day. I remember being a kid and listening to a person tell me, like as a 6-year-old, because we were still living in Georgia, and people telling us like, yeah, we saw a UFO. And like, they were like, I know what I saw. And I still remember them saying, I know what I saw. And I still remember like people around like the little campfire we were around. They're like, oh, you're full of shit. Like you didn't see nothing. And like you go on, even today, go online. I promise you, you're going to find so many people that are like not liar, but maybe like you're seeing things. What shrooms were you on? Like, shit like that.
And that all comes from like the Robertson panel, because that was one of the things. Like the Robertson panel basically suggested using official propaganda and also like enlisting just news outlets. If a news outlet was report on someone seeing a UFO, it's got to be played up in jest. It's like someone saw a UFO. Like, how crazy is this? ET's gonna come down any minute now. It's got to be played up in that mentality to kind of like make light of it. It can't be taken seriously.
Oh, and just the 6 years of evidence, and it only takes 12 hours to decide that it is like the jurors took longer in the Johnny Heard Amber. Yes, you understand what I mean. And the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, they took longer to decide that than what it did for you guys to decide that UFOs were just not real with 6 years worth of evidence.
6 years of data. Yeah,
6 years of data. And you're telling me no further evidence needed? We put in a solid 12 hours.
I think one of the like craziest like I guess debunking or like disproving, kind of make light of things kind of scenarios I've ever seen was you ever hear about the Phoenix Lights? It's like one of the most widespread UFO sightings of all time. We got to cover it on this some point.
Oh yeah.
But it was this huge thing that happened in Phoenix, Arizona, I believe in the 90s. where this massive like triangular UFO, and there's videos and pictures online.
Oh yeah, I've seen photos. Yeah. It
Yeah.
has like am I right? Does it have like an orange-ish tint to
I think so. I think it's basically like a shadowy, like you can only kind of see the shadow of it sometimes, but it gets seen over like all of Phoenix, Arizona, like cross county lines. Police officers see it. Hundreds of people see it. Like it's a massive sighting. Like there's something there. And the very next day, they hold a press conference. The city of Phoenix holds a press conference to address it because, like I said, hundreds of people have saw this. Police officer, everything. And the mayor comes out and he's like, "Well, we have apprehended the culprit behind all this, and we're bringing him out so he can explain himself and apologize to the public." And it's this like guy comes out in this like stupid Halloween costume, alien thing, and it was such like salt in the wound for all these like police officers and stuff that came forth and saw this UFO. And this is just the next day.
So bad.
And I thought that was just that's just poor taste. But that was kind of like part of the tactics that the government kind of employed, is to deter people from believing this stuff, to make sure they just dispute every possible UFO instance. Has got to be some crackpot thing. It's got to be you're crazy, you misidentify. I think they also kind of like accounted a lot of the police officers like sightings as they were overworked. I think that's what they said. They were overworked and they saw stuff.
I mean, because I pulled a photo of it, and like it says it was seen for 106 minutes. On March 13th. 106 minutes. You're telling me that everyone had the same delusion for exactly 106 minutes.
Right.
Are you joking? I'm going to just show you. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's insane.
Yeah, it's wild, and it's crazy, but that was just kind of a result of Blue Book and the Robertson panel, is just to make sure you make light of any UFO sighting. It cannot be taken seriously. Like Ruppelt said, UFOs cannot exist no matter what you see, no matter what you believe. UFOs cannot exist. That was the attitude going into Blue Book. So
it's just, I have so many thoughts and feelings, Ty. I just don't like it. Just like the knowledge portion of it is like what I just keep going back to, because I'm like, that shuts down so much knowledge that we could have potentially learned. And like even today, it shuts down some knowledge that we can learn. Like, of course, like it's gotten so much better now, but
even today, like the Disclosure Act came out, during the Obama administration, where all the documents had to be all these government documents had to be disclosed, or you can petition for stuff to be disclosed. And a lot of the Project Blue Book stuff that came out was essentially useless because they had went through and redacted all the information out of it. They just took they blacked out all the information. So a lot of these things that got put out from Project Blue Book are just sheets of black marks. There's nothing there. Like it's useless. They had done their due diligence to make sure that there was basically no, if any, no useful information that could come from it. These were like, a lot of these documents were like, this is the only copy of it, kind of thing.
It makes you wonder, like, if something was found and like they're like, nope, shut it down.
Yeah,
like
I think it's interesting. And what Ruppelt said in his book about Project Sign was on the cusp of basically coming to a conclusion that had interplanetary origins. There was some sort of interplanetary activity going on right before it was shut down. So that's pretty interesting. Then following that, you had Grudge, which came in. That was just a propaganda, just a public relations thing. And then Blue Book, which turned into just just to disclose all the, or just to redact everything, just to make take all this stuff away.
Blue Book sounds like a tidying up loose ends sort of phase of that, because Grudge was kind of like Grudge to me, and this is my words, sounds to me like the first fake news to ever get introduced into the US. Like, we're going to cover this up. You're going to report what we tell you to report, and we're going to pay you a lot of money. Ty didn't say they paid money. I'm saying they probably paid money. But, like, that's what that feels like to me. Just going back to what you said, just like the abruptness of finding interplanetary. I want to know what that is. I think we should get to know what that is.
It's very interesting to see what that would have been. And it's just very interesting too that they were on the cusp of that right when it was just closed down for lack of proof. Was the only explanation given is lack of proof. So it's very interesting. Just a lot of shitty stuff. And see, even just the way we're talking about things now. I mean, this is just a direct result of what Project Blue Book did to the public's perception of the government.
Yeah,
it's this shadowy entity that's going to cover up anything, no matter what. I mean, this is just the way we're talking about it right now. That's just the exact result of that.
Oh yeah. People, I won't say we because I'm my own person and I have different beliefs than a lot of other people. But I definitely hear what the government side of things is most of the time and just take a grain of salt with it. And I mean, you're right. It probably does have a lot to do with the way that Project Blue Book handled this. And, just that distrust of, well, yeah, they probably did pay him off. Or they could have said, hey, this is dangerous. Please don't do this. And the press company was like, okay, we'll do it.
So now that we've talked about Men in Black quite a bit here in this month of November, what do you think the Men in Black? What's your perception of the Men in Black?
See, I'm torn. Well, so here's what I definitely know, in my opinion, is I definitely know that the Men in Black are here to sort of keep things hush hush, whether that is, about UFOs, whether that is about ETs possibly being on our planet, all kind like things being built here, the underground UFO layer thing. They're definitely here to make sure that some sort of information does not get out, whether they're human or alien. I definitely think that the government would have some out there, just to tidy up the loose ends and maybe even have a presence. But I also think, just my own little conspiracy, that aliens could be mimicking that because they already know that we have a little thing. So I think it could be either or. I definitely think they are a contributing factor of a lot of the UFO stories that we hear. And I think they're out there. I think they're real.
Yeah. I'm kind of torn as well. I don't necessarily think I believe as heavily in the UFO. I think not the UFO, the alien aspect of the Men in Black themselves. I don't think you can even I don't think it's even up for debate that a lot of the Men in Black encounters are just, government agents. I think that's probably a large majority of these supposed Men in Black encounters is just government, officials trying to make sure that this stuff is silenced.
Yeah.
Could there be a couple alien encounters that get mixed in with the Men in Black thing? Probably. I think so. I think there could be. I think even that can kind of play into the whole telephone game thing. It can work the opposite way, where it's you're visited by a strange alien that kind of turns into a Men in Black encounter. So I think the telephone game thing was probably one of the most interesting portions of this that I found was just that. But yeah, I don't know. I think that the real Men in Black are scary. The government types. I think that's the scariest aspect of it all. But I don't know. I think maybe there could be some alien interactions there as well. But I think for the most part, a lot of this is just these government agencies trying to silence UFO experiencers and sow disinformation.
Yes.
Through fear.
Yeah, through fear. I just find it very interesting that we hear a lot of the Men in Black tales. And the tales that I've heard, no one's been directly threatened, but it's very much implied that if you don't do what I say, bad things are going to happen. If you know of any stories where people have been actually threatened by Men in Black, please leave those in the comments. Let us know.
I'd like to do I think the Men in Black counters would be a fun thing to revisit next year for Black Friday as well.
Yes, I love it.
So, sure.
It sends a tingle up my spine. I love it.
Yeah. But yeah, this has been good. This has been an interesting trip through November here, exploring the aspects of the Men in Black. I think this is really fun. I feel like my whole perception of Men in Black kind of changed. Like I said, the episode File 005. I went into it as a Mulder, and I think I came on as a Scully because I just kind of I don't necessarily believe the alien aspect of the Men in Black anymore.
I love that reference. I would definitely say that I believe less in the alien aspect, more in the sort of government official aspect of it.
Right.
The telephone game, especially because like I feel like if you ever went to a public high school, you are a victim of telephone game. Maybe not a victim, maybe you're a starter like I was. But like everyone's kind of been through that where, say you've said something or experienced something and then it gets kind of back to you and you're like, wait, that's not what happened at all. Less alien for me, more of like this is a person, this is someone with an organization that's trying to cover something up.
Yeah, I think if you have any time, definitely look into Richard Doty more. Like I said, The Mirage Men is a great documentary. I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix. If not, I think it's pretty easy to find on Prime, maybe. But Mirage Men's a great documentary, and that focuses a lot on what we talked about today with the disinformation sowing within the UFO community during the 70s and 80s, and Richard Doty himself. Also, looking into some of the shady doings of the AFOSI, because there's more stuff to them. Mm-hmm. We kind of just gave you kind of a streamlined version of events, just to kind of put home the idea that they are the real Men in Black.
Yes.
But they did do a lot more shady stuff, and definitely look into that.
Oh, yes.
Because it's pretty shocking. And hell, just even look into like the way the other governments have, government agencies have handled UFOs. It's pretty shocking. The way they'll just go and totally try to ruin people's lives. Mm-hmm. And it does make you really question, what actually are they covering up? That's pretty interesting. When someone's willing to go to those links, especially with poor Paul Benowitz. I think that's just a sad story. So that's just a sad story.
It's so sad. Oh, he breaks my heart. The Mirage Men you can find on YouTube for free, Tubi, and Amazon Prime Video for $2.99 in the US.
Go to Tubi. I love Tubi.
I fucking love Tubi.
Best streaming service in the world, and it's free.
It really. Oh my god, it is. I think I got lost on
Tubi.
I think you got Ben hooked on Tubi, and then he got me hooked on Tubi, and then it's
so much shit. Literally, it's crazy. You'll go on like Prime and see a movie like for like rent, and you go to Tubi and it's just free. It's just there. And
just with ads. Just with ads. Yeah. You just have to watch a couple ads, and that's fine.
We're not sponsored by Tubi.
We're not sponsored by Tubi.
Anyone, but
no, we're not sponsored by anyone.
It's a great streaming service. We just find a lot of good I watch a lot of Bigfoot stuff on there.
Do you really?
A lot of Bigfoot documentaries. Oh yeah, nice. All the small town monsters. I don't know if you ever heard Small Town Monsters. Mm-hmm. They're like I believe they're from Ohio. They do like really full length, in depth documentaries on like local legends, like they do Mothman and Bigfoot, all this stuff. But they do like local legends, like the Whitehall monster, Minerva monster.
I wonder if they did the Grassman.
Minerva monster is
Minerva monster.
Grassman.
Okay.
Yeah, they're really good.
Nice. I've been watching all the serial killer documentaries. Because with Thanksgiving, I'm thinking about Thanksgiving and killing my Thanksgiving plate and devouring that. So I'm sure there's a Dahmer joke in there somewhere, but we're just not going to go there.
Sure. Yeah.
But that was awesome. I feel like I learned a lot. I feel like I have more questions and I have reasons to question more things. But like that was cool.
I feel like listening to File 005 and 007 together as a double feature would be a really great exercise. You want to do that. I think these make great companion pieces.
Yes.
Now, next episode here in a couple weeks, we have File 008, which is Bailey, and she is doing Operation Paperclip.
I'm excited. Huge. I'm so excited.
We mentioned that all the way back on like File 001. I'm pretty sure we mentioned Operation Paperclip, which is a super crazy, real life government project that if you haven't heard of, like buckle up because it's wild that it's an actual thing. It's just it's crazy.
It's super interesting. There's some conspiracies that came out of that we're going to touch on, but not going to go into because it made a lot of people mad. But we're just gonna. But it's very interesting the sort of stories and accusations that came out of Operation Paperclip. But we're going to talk about those on that episode, which I'm really excited to hear your reactions to all of those, Ty.
Oh, I'm excited for that. Now we're coming into December, of course, with that. In December, of course, we don't do a whole month of Christmas stuff, but we will have a nice Christmas week. A very Cult Talk Net Christmas comes up at the end of the year. And we do have some special plan for that week. It's going to be a little bonus for all of our fans here on Cult Talk Conspiracy. And I cannot wait for that episode because I think it's going to be a really fun one.
I'm excited.
It's going to be another Encounters, and it's a Christmas Encounters one. And I'm not going to say what it is, but it's going to be really fun. We'll probably announce on the next episode. But
I know. I'm excited.
It's going to be a fun one. I'm very excited for that one. But yeah, it's going to be a little gift for all of our Cult Talk Conspiracy fans.
Yeah, it'll be a good one.
We've been doing pretty good. We're actually building a pretty nice little fan base.
I know. Oh my gosh, you guys have shocked the hell out of us. Like we look at the numbers and like I took a solid month not to look at the numbers, maybe even almost 2 months. Because I was really afraid to look at it. But like, you guys are awesome. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for listening. Please comment, like, subscribe, show your friends. Notification bell. We love the notification bell.
And definitely reach out to us. I've loved that. We've had a few people reach out and like give us some really nice praise, and I love it.
Oh,
it's so cool to see like people actually enjoying the stuff we do. And Cult Talk Net, we strive for excellence, and we do a lot of cool stuff. Cult of Campbell, which is coming back for Christmas. We have Cult of Lore every other Thursday, or every first and third Thursday of the month. People really get behind that show.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We have Cult of Russell, which is coming up at the end of the year.
I think
we have all kinds of stuff.
First announcement of Cult of Russell. Oh
I think that might be the first mention of it. There's Cult of Russell coming. So if you're a fan of Kurt Russell, I
think I vouched for Cult of Russell when you still lived in Chile, when you were still living in Chillicothe. I'm like, we need to do Cult Russell. Like, I will be on every episode of Cult Russell.
I was talking to my friends at Black Ink Press, who are some good friends of ours who are putting on BruceFest. I was talking to them about Cult of Russell, and they thought that was the coolest idea. So they were pretty excited for that.
Nice. That's exciting. And I mean, it's a good follow-up to Bruce Campbell as well, because I don't want to say their humors are about the same, but they are, first of all, they're gorgeous men. Second of all, they are they're funny. They're really, really funny, and they kind of give off like that gentleman.
You get that machismo.
They do, yeah. The cheesemo, I think that's perfect.
Yeah. But we thank you guys for listening to Cult Talk Conspiracy. This has been great. And I'm really excited for Christmas, Christmas stuff. And like I said, we're going to drop a special bonus for you guys on the first of the year. And we're really going to try to play with this Encounters concept, because I think that's a really cool concept we camp with for our specials. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all we can say about the Men in Black. And we might come back to the Men in Black here at some point, because there's still a lot of stuff about the Men in Black. I mean, we have almost like 2.5 hours of content right now, 3 hours of content, and I don't just focus on the Men in Black. I don't think we even scratched the surface of it. So there might be more Men in Black stuff to come here shortly. But until next time, Operation Paperclip's coming up, and definitely keep an eye out for that, because it's going to be a fun one.
It's going to be exciting.
But I think that's pretty much all we can say about the Men in Black. I think we've unsealed these files. Make sure you go back and listen to File 005. And I think 5 and 7, you can listen to those continuous.
Oh, yeah.
And don't forget about File 006, where Bailey dives into the super volcano.
That was fun.
I was not expecting that conspiracy. I didn't know that was a conspiracy. So.
That one was a lot of fun. That
was a lot of fun. I like that one a lot.
It's a conspiracy pasta, but I had a lot of fun with it. It was cute. I liked it.
Yeah, that was. And as always, reach out to us, comment, like, subscribe, all the stuff Bailey said earlier. You can find all the Cult Talk Net things at Cult Talk Net across the board: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and of course all your favorite podcast platforms. If you're watching this on YouTube, go check out the podcast if you want to listen to it while you drive or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And check out Cult of Lore, first, third Thursday. Cult of Campbell, which we'll be making sporadic appearances from here on, and all of our cool Christmas stuff we have coming up. Until next time, I've been Ty.
I've been Bailey.
Question everything.